Others often sometimes forget who really knows what's the truth. Often dignified, how funny changing the tide. It feels like you already knew. That's the devil, you would never run in circles. Feels like you already knew. That's the devil, you would never run in circles. Feels like you already knew. Say you, I would never.
All right, good evening, everyone, and we will get started here momentarily. As you can see, we've got a pretty wild story for you all to hear. Now, for some of this won't be shocking when we come to talk about zoning and personal property rights, but it is good. Instead of me or Brandon just reading articles about it, it's good to hear real life experience and what people are actively going through, fighting against basically county tyrants. Or, you know, it could be local, it could be state, it could be county, it could be federal, but there's tyranny everywhere. And these people get a little too, I don't know, they seem to like their tyranny a little bit too much. So let's start the recording and then we shall proceed with the Liberty Talk.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
All right, folks, and we are back with another edition of the, I don't know, I almost screwed up. I'll just go Bugs Bunny style, the Rootin' Tootin' edition of the Missouri Liberty Report here, and a little bit different show this week. The last several weeks, you know, Brandon and I just been covering different topics as far as Missouri and a national level and even some foreign policy stuff. But this week is all Missouri out of Cass County. We've got a guest with us to talk about something that he's been going through lately with his local county. I'll call them tyrants. He may not call them that, but I'll call them tyrants. When I saw the info that he had posted on Facebook, I thought, well, this is definitely tyrannical. So Jim, oh my God, I'm going to screw his name up. Jim Totten is with us this evening to talk about what he's been going through in Cass County. And without further ado, Mr. Totten, how are you this evening, sir?
Doing well, Johnny. Thank you for having me on.
Not a problem at all. So let's just get right into the story. Why don't you just start? Well, actually, before we do that, introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll get into the story of what you and your family have been dealing with here lately.
All right, I'm Jim Totten. I'm a police officer in the city of Lake Winnebago here in the Kansas City area. Married. My wife is actually sitting here next to me, so if you hear her, that's her milling about. We have 6 kids between us that are at home. I have one adult daughter as well, and my mother also lives with us, and we help care for her.
All right, so Jim, I know the beginning. Well, this whole story is heartbreaking to listen to, but the beginning part to me, I mean, what you've had to go through from the very beginning is horrible, and I don't wish it on anybody. But let's start from the top, and then we'll move through your experiences with Cass County and everything that you've had to deal with, and anything that goes along with that.
Sure. If I get too detailed, please let me know, and I'll pump the brakes on that. But so February 25th, I was on my way home from duty, and I got the worst call that you can imagine, other than somebody died. But my teenage son Jesse calls me and he says, "Dad, the house is on fire." And those are words that will ring in my ear, but they still do to this moment. I can't imagine it's going to be anytime soon that it's less. But so I got home. I was probably 2 miles from the house at that point. I got home and my house was engulfed in flames, and I had a yard full of fire trucks. And the firefighters just showed up. There's a lot of jokes go with cops and firefighters back and forth, but I will no longer make jokes about firefighters after that day. They really were quite heroic in the way they behaved and the way they took care of us. So they did get our house, the fire extinguished with as minimum damage as it could be with the amount of fire. But we lost about 60 to maybe 70% of our belongings in the fire. So that night we scrambled around, and we've got Red Cross came in and helped. They're great, but the help's limited with them as well. So thankfully they gave us a card with some cash on the card to help us get through some incidentals and even a hotel room if we needed. But where we were living, I didn't want to leave our property unattended because the downstairs was still intact, and there are people that live not too far from us that would love to get into my house and steal as much as they could. So we had to stay on the property. And so arrangements were made. My in-laws brought us an RV to have a roof over our head that night. And we all managed to kind of square ourselves away in an RV, and a couple of my teenage boys stayed at a friend's house that night. And we had several pets that were on site. We had to shuffle around and get to either a shelter or friends and family that took care of them for us. But we lost pets in the fire too. So lost a 20-plus-year-old parrot. My mom lost a cat. We lost a couple other cats. And my family's we have raising reptiles a hobby for my kids and I. So we lost our reptile collection too, which is pretty extensive. And so we got that RV, and then we decided that, all right, we know that there's a house not too far from us that did this, so they're living in an RV after their house burned up. We'll just homestead there and do it that way. So we managed to get one RV for ourselves. Again, that was a big help just to have that on site. And then my brother, who lives in Colorado, he got here within a couple of days, and he bought my mom an RV so she could live in that. We live rural and don't live, my neighbors are barely in sight. So we didn't see that we were harming anybody by having this there. And basically I set up camp. I set up a place for us to live. We had generators at that point. Our electric company was very good about coming out and getting us back online. I had an electrician that came out from a contact with a friend, and they put professionally installed RV connections right at the pole. So we've done everything appropriate. I ordered a porta potty, so we had that on site. We managed to get the water turned back on, and now we got full water. We got electricity. We got everything that we need. And the day I'm thinking that we have finally, I don't know what we were like, a week into this, maybe 10 days. The day I'm thinking, all right, we've finally got things stabilized and our family's together and we're whole and we're having a barbecue outside. This fire happened after the day after our daughter's birthday. We were supposed to celebrate that day, so we had to put that off. And we're thinking everything's okay. And I turn and I look, and there's a sign posted in my yard, and I thought that wasn't there before, so I went and looked, and it was a cease and desist order with a letter on the back of it. Disturbing as the letter wasn't signed, there was very little information on it other than you can't have 3 RVs on your property. So that right there is, if that doesn't resonate with people, you think about the sentence is, you can't have your property on your property. And that's where the tyrannical part comes. And as I've explored this, I've kind of come up with a little bit of a different viewpoint of it. But initially, it was pretty upsetting to see that. And there was also mention that I needed to have building permits. I'm not building. I'm just trying to live and exist at this point. So I went to the office the next day when they opened. Talked to somebody at the front desk. I was not very happy with the way I was treated by that person. A lot of like robotic answers. Like I'm in a state of trauma because I just about lost my mom, my daughter, and my son in the fire, and that's still like black clouds hanging over you. And I understand. I appreciate how you feel. That's too bad. And like, there's no emotion in it, no caring. And she's looking at me, but she's not really looking at me. She's looking past me, like I don't exist. And I said, okay, is there a supervisor here I can talk to? I've already talked to her. She said this is what has to be done. So she hands me this permit paperwork, and by the time I get done adding it up, it's going to cost me $3,000 or so to get a permit just so I can stay there. And then I'm told that you have to move 2 of your RVs and you can only live in one, but you have to move all 3 of them right now because you can't live on there, period. So when you read the verbiage in the permit paperwork, it's all geared towards new home construction. This verbiage isn't really geared towards an exigent circumstance, so to speak. So I think that this is just something that it hasn't been tested and it hasn't been explored. So moving forward, some of the structure of these permits and this writing needs to be changed, because you can't just have a cookie cutter permit like, oh, well, it's new construction. And what was disturbing about this is in my whole area, there are several properties that have more than one RV on it. I'm not exaggerating. There's several, but yet mine got hit. They didn't bother anybody else. So I am a little suspicious of whether or not somebody had a bee in their bonnet about me, or just, I don't know, maybe they were driving by and they didn't like the fact that there was 3 of them there. But look, I set this up nice. It's clean. All of our stuff is tucked away. They're set up appropriately. We got garden lights and stuff outside. And I put together a community area for us all to get together and have barbecues and be together. But the one thing that we're all missing right now out of our property is our kitchen. That's the gathering place for our family. We spend a lot of time cooking and playing music, and I dance with my wife in the kitchen, and we goof around, and that's the TV is not our gathering place. Our dining room table and our kitchen is, and we don't have that now. So we've lost an element out of our family that's important. So when I go in and I go through this, those answers weren't acceptable to me, to just shuffle me off and move on. So I posted that post on Facebook to see if I could get some help. And it's an awkward thing for me to ask for help, because I'm usually the one that's diving in helping, and it's humbling to me, and this whole experience has been humbling. But the lucky part of it was I did finally get in contact with the director there, and I made some headway and had some sense made, and we had a human face-to-face conversation, and that seemed to make the difference. And I think that in this world where people they fire out angry texts and emails, and there's no face to a name and no voice in front of them, I think it's easy to kind of dehumanize people. But I made some headway. We're kind of in a holding pattern right now. Our next biggest battle right now is probably going to be just dealing with insurance, getting the rebuild done. So hopefully that all made sense.
Well, here's my thing, Jim. And I'll just speak for myself here. When you talk about permits, you're looking at $3,000. Initial cost just to have RVs on your property. This is
Right.
my thing. If you own the property, if the property is yours, I'm sorry, I just have problems with building permits in general because it's like if I don't build my house and it's leaning to a 45-degree angle where it could fall into my neighbor's property, who cares what I do with it? Now, and then you bring up a good point, like you're not building anything, you're not repairing the house, you're not doing any of these things, you're just putting RVs so you have a place to live on your own property. And I don't know, I just have building permits drive me insane. I absolutely hate them. I think they're horrible ways of just. I feel like the counties and the cities use those to basically say they can keep track of when you do improvements on your home, so they know, oh, the value's gone up, and we can assess your property at a higher value, and then we can tax you more. Blah 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 blah. But the thing that bothers me also about the story so far is that you're telling them, they're like, yeah, we understand, we're sorry. Oh man, I just lost him. Let's try calling him back. The heck is going on here?
I don't know if you were hearing it, but also when he was on the phone, I kind of heard like a background noise when he wasn't talking.
It's quite a bit. Let's see if we can get him back.
Hello?
All right, okay, you're back. Somehow we got disconnected.
I don't know what happened. All right.
But
Fire away.
yeah, just finishing up. The problem that we're sorry, we understand, but then they just go on like nothing happened. That bugs the crap out of me when they do that. That there's no humanity in it. It's like, well, that's just the rules, and that's what we have to do, and we get it. Your house just burned down, but it sucks to be you. That drives me absolutely nuts.
Yeah, why not? Hey, what can we do to help you? What can we do to help your family and make you whole? So I'm paying taxes into my system here, so you can come out and put your foot on my throat when I'm just down. One of the things that incensed me the most out of this was when I said, look, I have farm animals there. I have to be on site to take care of them. They demand care all the time. Well, you can have somebody come in and take care of your animals. What sense does that make? So I'm going to hire somebody to come in and take care of my animals while I'm not there because I'm not allowed to be there, but a stranger is allowed to come on my property and take care of my animals. Can we please wrap our heads around why that is a thing? Because it makes no sense to me.
Well, go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, I was just going to say the most frustrating part of this story so far to me is that someone drove out to your property, or even if they were just driving by, to get that notice, they'd have to come back, which means they saw your burnt down house and then saw that you were making the best of it with RVs, some RVs on the property. And that's where they thought they needed to focus the attention. Is the house that clearly just burnt down is like, oh, we need to go after this guy. It's not like you were running an RV park. It wasn't like you were running an Airbnb where you were charging people to stay on your property. You were clearly just trying, like you said, keep the family together, keep your property. It's your property. Keep an eye on it, and try to make the best of that situation. And 7 to 10 days after it burned down. So like you said, you haven't even really been in too much contact with the insurance companies or nobody to even start the rebuilding process. And they're already hounding you about the way you're living out there. And it's not like you're in some.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, we need to get a handle on this. They're doing something wrong, and it makes it worse when somebody suggests that somebody else come on your property to take care of this. And then I also was told, I have teenage girls, so our kids are daughters 11, 13, 16, and 16. My boys are 18 and 20, and I don't care if my kids move out anytime soon. I'm not in a hurry to push them out. I think families need to stay together. But I said, look, I can't have 9 people living in one RV. Oh, yes, you can. No, I cannot. I cannot have teenage boys sharing a living sleeping area with teenage girls because DFS will be up my butt over that. And that's not even a realistic way of doing it. Well, you can move your RV somewhere else and stay at a campground. Do you understand that your house payments don't stop just because your house burns? You have to continue to pay your house payments. You have to continue to pay your house insurance payments. You have to continue to pay your car payments and all the other things that the world doesn't stop just because your house burns. So suggesting that we go sit somewhere, pay three RVs, $500 a piece, that's $1,500. Well, you can go rent a house. I had a house. Why do I need to go double my bills? There's just a complete misunderstanding and almost like there's this fantasy land that all of a sudden everything's supposed to just be perfect. Like you can just magically go relocate. This is our house. It's been our house for 7-8 years now, and we've got a lot invested into it. And, you just can't back up, move that. That's it.
Well, and here's the thing, like you said, Jim. Here's the main thing. It's your house. It's your property. And this is why I get so fed up with all the permits and fees, because you're treated as it's not your property. You can do whatever you want on your property as long as they permit it. As long as they say you can do it, then and you pay I call it an extortion fee, then you're allowed to do it. Well, then it's not your property anymore. If you have to ask permission to put RVs and you have to pay fees to put RVs on your property, then it's not your property. In all actuality, it is not yours. It is yours by permission, and that's not personal property. But we keep losing personal property rights with these zoning and planning boards and the permits and the fees and the licensure and everything else. Our personal property rights are slowly being sucked away from us.
It is. And here's one that I just happened to come across. In Cass County, you have to have a permit to have an above-ground pool. It's a $275 permit to put a pool on your property.
And it's
So
not even it's not even like you have to dig or anything. It's an above ground pool. So they're just out trying to tax you because they can.
Yeah, that was more shocking to me than even the RV permit was. Wow, you need a permit for an above ground pool. I wonder how many people actually know that you have to have a permit for an above ground pool. And I wonder if it's something that they even like try to enforce, because I don't know that you can realistically go out and find all the above ground pools and start hitting people up for permits for them.
Oh, well, don't challenge them, Jim, because they'll take that as a challenge, and they'll be like, oh, that's a good idea. We got to go out and find all these above-ground pools and penalize these people because they didn't get their permit.
I get that, but, there's got to be a point where we've got to quit being afraid of the government, and it's our duty to kind of stand our ground and dig our heels in with things. And I don't even know what's going to happen with this moving forward. I don't know that I'm not going to get, they might come out to my house tomorrow and try to serve me with some papers. Maybe I've hacked somebody off at me, but I am.
So, I just wanted to ask about the. So, do you remember who it was? Was it actually like the county executive, or who at the county you spoke to, where you said you had a normal human conversation, and they kind of heard you out? Like,
yeah, and honestly, this lady that I talked to, I do know she is. I don't know if I want to say her name right now. She needs the attention, but. She is the director, and I didn't have any negative interactions with her. She listened. She heard what we had to say, and she agreed that some of the wording needs to be changed. And it's really the permit thing is really geared. We have a pretty good growth going on in Cass County, and I can see some reasons for some permits, but some permits I don't really see a reason. I don't see a reason for an above ground pool permit. I don't see a reason for an RV permit. If you jack up your wiring, and say you're in a multi-family house, and you you own this part of this duplex, but the other people don't, and you mess with your wiring, well, you're at the mercy of however intelligent or stupid the person is next door. And that's not very comforting sometimes, because some people aren't very bright about how they run their electricity. So I get a permit there so you can make sure that things are up to code. You're not just going to ignite the house whenever you fire up the electricity. But I also get that there's certain things that require, does it affect the water tables? Does it affect drainage? Is it going to affect your drinking water? I get that if you know that there's possible chemicals that can get in the soil or whatever. So I don't have a problem with that. But the fees are ridiculous. I don't think I think that was the original intention for building permits, and then it became leverage, and then it became a tool. And too many people have figured out that it's a power tool to use to manage people, to control people, and it's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, no.
Oh, well, zoning commissioners and people of that nature, they've been, they'll take money from certain groups for their election or whatever, and then you'll see that an area they wanted to build on becomes commercial or becomes multifamily or whatever they want it to be. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of it's definitely used as a power tool. For example, they lobbied I can't remember what casino it was off the top of my head, but there was a casino that wanted to be built in St. Louis, but you have to build your casinos on the river. And so they lobbied, they got it built, the Lumiere Place casino in downtown St. Louis. So they lobbied the Missouri Congress to change the law where you could build a casino not near you didn't have to build it on the river. And then as soon as the Lumiere Place got built, they switched that law back. And that's in Congress, but you could see where a zoning commission has the same power to change where people can build and what they can build. And just like you said, they can use it as a power tool to help their friends or, control how they want things to be. And so, yeah, you definitely see that power dynamic play out a lot.
It's unfortunate. And I really just wish people understood what your line is, what your role is in serving your community. I think what was another thing that caused such a big shock was we had the most amazing outreach from my work, the officers at my work, the people in the community of Winnebago were amazing. And then the people that live around us in the whole Cass County area, people I didn't even know existed. You had no idea. They showed up on our property. You need food, you need towels, you need totes, whatever it is they were bringing us things. It's a guy I never met brought us a generator, right? And he brought us a generator on a night, it was a night that we needed a generator for one of the RVs, and it was getting ready to get cold, like it was going to snow. And he brought it that night. We were trying to figure out how we were going to make it work. And man, it worked. Like things kept kind of coming together for us, and it was really disappointing to have this kind of thing dropped on us, just especially today where I reached up, grabbed my wife's hand, I'm like, we're doing okay, we're going to get through this. And then I turn and I see that sign, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we just one more thing, and then I had no idea that I couldn't have imagined that this was a thing, that I needed a permit to put an RV on my property. And
but so are you're sorry, so you're still battling with them. You're still battling with the county to let them put multiple RVs on the property. Like you're like, this is not resolved. You're still like working again.
No, we're okay right now. We're kind of in a state of neutrality. They're not bothering me. I'm not having any issues with them. I did have. This will probably stir something up, but I don't care anymore. Just to add to it, the county lets off. We're doing okay. No issues there. And I had the human conversation, and here comes Missouri Conservation Agent comes out, and they come out. They walk around my property, look around my house, And I'm away at my grandson's birthday party in Lee Summit. So my sons are at home. They're like, Dad, there's conservation out here walking around. I'm like, what? Well, flag them down and find out what they want. So I get on the phone with the conservation agent, and somebody has turned me in because I have an Arctic fox. They're illegal in the state of Missouri. I bought my Arctic fox from a USDA breeder. All legal. It's never been a secret. It's on my Facebook. I've talked about it on 6 other podcasts I've been on. It's not a secret. So they come out and they get me on the phone, and he says, "Well, we need to go in and see whether these are red foxes." No, you don't. I don't need you to see that they're red foxes. I have an Arctic fox. I've never said anything different. Well, we got to confirm. No, you don't. We need to get in. Look, you know you're talking to a cop right now. Oh, you're talking to a cop. Yeah, you're talking to a cop. So no, you're not going to my house without a warrant. Well, I said, look, if you want to see what I have, look on Facebook. I have Arctic fox. It's all over there. Not a big deal. So they kind of let off of that for a little bit. So it just leads me to believe that somebody else has got some sort of issue with me, and they're just trying to get at me.
It's a shame how easily it is they can, if someone is trying to get you, if that is the case, it's a shame how easily they can weaponize the government against you and have officers just on your property, have the county leaving you notes. Because like you said that there are other people in your area who have, I'm assuming in Cass County, who have multiple RVs on their property, and they've never been bothered. And you said someone else had their property, their house caught on fire, so they were doing the same thing, and they weren't bothered by the county. So if someone is weapon...
As soon as I raised hell about it, though, they came out and they drove through the area and they started hitting everybody for it. I'm like, so now I feel bad because my raising hell drew attention to them, and it was like, well, I don't know, it felt really underhanded, and I don't understand, inspector, why this person went around doing this. It was also the same way with the county assessor. One day I come out, and it was before this, I come out, and there's this woman walking around on my property with a clipboard, and she's kind of eyeing my house, and then she's walking around in between our RVs. I come out, and I go, "Who are you?" She goes, "Oh, well, what happened here? Was this a fire?" I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "Who are you?" "Oh, well, I'm the county assessor." "Okay, why are you on my property?" "Well, because we have to zero out your property." "Well, do what you have to do, and please get off my property. I don't need you here." "Oh, it's okay, but is everybody okay?" "Look, I'm not dealing with this right now. I have other things going on, and the first thing they're doing is coming out, walking around your property." I don't understand what people think that they can actually walk on private property, and that it's free to them just to do whatever they want. Just like law enforcement, if you can't just go on somebody's property on a call, a report of maybe. So that's when I've got these conservation agents out there walking around on my property. That's not even reasonable suspicion. That's just a call. So if you have reasonable suspicion, you could articulate that, yeah, you could get in there and walk around, but we don't have reasonable suspicion just on a phone call. That doesn't work. So
now I know conservation agents have more authority for unwarranted searches based on game. I know they have that, I'm not sure how much more, but I know they do have a limited more authority for searching private property. But that is, I'm not defending it. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that, it is a problem in itself, too.
I have an exotic animal. I'm not taking an illegal game. So their scope of search and scope of authority changes when you have with that. I'm not accused of poaching or anything. So yeah, if you've got a possible poacher out there, then that moves into a different realm. But you have a call on something completely random by some stranger, which means that you shouldn't, as a law enforcement officer, I don't want that responsibility either, thinking that immediately puts me in a reasonable suspicion. An anonymous call is not reasonable suspicion. An anonymous call is just that. It's a call. It requires some follow-up. Go knock on somebody's door, which they did, but don't come walking around my property first. You do not have permission to walk my property.
Again,
Yeah.
this, just talking about property rights, and again, they well, under these circumstances, this is what's sad to me, is that we have this case with you, and then I have, like, locally here, several years ago, somebody had a dog in their yard. It was their dog. They had it on a lead outside, and somebody else was walking their dog off a leash. That dog came into the homeowner's yard, and their dog bit the other dog. And then the cop shows up and says, well, we got a problem because your dog bit another dog. And she's like, yes, but my dog was on his lead in the yard, and that dog was off a leash, came into my yard, and my dog bit his dog. Now, am I happy that my dog bit another dog? No, but why are you harassing me when my dog didn't leave the yard? And so we talk about degrading property rights. You have things like that. People don't look at that as a property rights issue, but it really is. I mean, if it's the same thing. I have a dog that's running around in the yard. If something, if another dog comes in and tries to attack one of my dogs, and the biggest one sticks up for him, can I get in trouble because somebody's not paying attention to their animal? Well, that's degradation of property rights. That dog or human came into my yard, so it almost reeks of, well, you have to control everything coming. Like, what I got to do? Post guards around my property so no dogs or people come in. So my German Shepherd doesn't bite them because it looks like they're doing something stupid. I mean, at this point,
Right.
it's all the way around. We got zoning rules, we got property rules, we got all these permits, and then you have examples like that. And people need to take a deeper look at this and say, if something happens on my property and I'm not hurting anybody, and somebody comes onto my property unwanted, I didn't call them over, I didn't ask them over, I didn't invite them over, and they do something stupid and get themselves hurt, that's on them because they chose to violate my property rights. And I just wish more people would acknowledge that and get behind it to understand that this is how we got to the spot where we're at now.
Right. It'd be like getting burglarized and the burglar cuts his arm breaking the glass and then sues you because you didn't make it safe for him to get in and steal your stuff.
And we've seen this.
Yes. You can't make this up. This is a real thing. It's happened before. Or somebody breaks into the house and they get shot and the family sues because you defend your property. That's insane. That should not even be an option. It shouldn't be open for discussion. It should be like, you are nuts and we are not entertaining this, so move on.
All right. Well,
So
go ahead, Brandon.
I was just going to ask one more question. So you were saying that you're like whenever you were making a big stink because the county was telling you that you can't have multiple RVs and you have to get a permit to have one RV and you have to shove all 9 of your family members in there. So you were rightfully, airing your grievances. And so the county comes out and starts flagging all these other properties that also have that have RVs on their property. Did that not generate more support for your cause in a way though? Like, wouldn't everybody else getting flagged start to go, hey, wait, I'm also getting screwed by the county? So have you seen anybody around you rally in this fight for you? Because I know you were saying before the show that you had some representatives give you some like you've had some members of our state legislature reach out to you and offer you their support. So I just didn't know if like you're seeing this, seeing any support for this movement in like within the community, and is it growing?
So what I understand is there's several people that have written either emails or letters that on our behalf, and then Senator Rick Bratton, he reached out to me personally. And I had a nice phone call with him. He's a stand-up, regular, everyday dude. He has a family just like us. I can't imagine he would do anything any different. He helped out Bill Irwin is also a rep from our area. He helped out. I reached out to Mark Alford, who's also congressman. He sent my grievance to someone who could help as well. So I've had some pretty positive interactions with them. I have reached out to the commissioners. Haven't heard anything back from them yet. May or may not. If I don't, fine. It just means that there's no news is good news as far as I'm concerned. And I know that the folks that are just not too far from us, they got hit right afterwards, and they fought back too. So he pushed back, and there's another site on Facebook. It's against Cass County zoning type of site. The gentleman that ran that, I spoke to him as well, and he's been quite supportive. But there's people that are in the community of Lake Winnebago where I work. They've reached out as well, so I've had some pretty amazing support for this, and I think that nothing happens overnight. But I do think that moving forward, as long as we keep our thumb on the pulse of this thing, I think that the language will get changed in the permit requirements. And if we can get that done, that's at least a step in the right direction to maybe at least water down the permit situation, or at least get the fees for it dropped or the requirements dropped. It's really just kind of restrictive. And even the lady at the zoning office I talked to, she acknowledged that, yeah, this verbiage doesn't really pertain to an emergency circumstance. So that was part of her actually listening, hearing it, and she's supportive of changing. She did not say anything against the permit as the requirements existing. So, but I don't want to get her in some hot water if she's against it and have somebody like get a bee in their bonnet over messing with her, because that's not my goal. I'm just trying to say that she really did listen and heard what I was saying. So I don't need somebody to agree with me, but we need a dialogue, and we need to have an open conversation about things. And agree. If somebody agrees with everything you say, that's probably a bad sign too. So it's good to air out your differences and to not get stupid about things. I think that's one of the most important things is we don't need to be out on the highway blocking traffic because you're not getting your way with the zoning laws. You really need to go tend to this on a personal level, and then when it doesn't get to that point, then you gather your community and you approach it that way.
Absolutely.
So I guess at this point, Jim, if you want to continue on with your story after we kind of stopped and got into personal property rights and everything else, but go ahead and continue on with the story about after conservation and everything else shows up, what you've been through after that.
Well, the only thing we've been through right now is we're just waiting for we're trying to get some bids on the house to get it repaired, and then we got to forward that to the insurance. And right now we're literally, it's just every day we're trying to adjust to living out of an RV, to not having our family completely together in one building. But we're anticipating that if we're lucky, we'll be back in the house by the end of summer, beginning of fall. The month of September has been thrown around that's a possibility. That would be really helpful because I don't want to live in an RV in the wintertime.
No. Sounds a little rough.
Not manage the temperature in there just yet as it is, so it's either too hot or too cold. But and don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have the roof over our head, what we have. So it's been it's a everyday's learning experience with this. And the one thing is I'm trying to pass on to our family is that, look, this is the reality of what we're in right now. We can't just get by. We've got to continue to thrive and do things together as a family. And this is just an adjustment. And in a weird way, I had a meeting with our boys last night, just explaining, look, 150 years ago, people moved west with wagons. They found a house to build, and they lived out of tents or out of their wagons or just under the stars. We're doing that right now. So if this country was forged that way initially, they did it before us, we can do it now. So we're just trying to keep a positive outlook. We know that we keep our faith and a few prayers here and there, and that's made a difference. And then just making sure we stick together.
So, Jim, one other thing too. You and I talked on the phone a couple of weeks ago to schedule this interview, and you said that regardless of the outcome of this, you get through everything. That you made an important statement. Is that you will continue this fight when everything is resolved. Just please explain that, because we see people. They have something like this happens, they fight through it and they get it resolved. And then after that, they just go, oh, okay, well, I'm good now. There are some that do that. And there are some that will continue to fight on for anybody else around them going through the same thing to kind of muster support and be a rock for them in the same predicament. And please elaborate on that a little bit.
So my thought process is I've stirred this mess up. I've brought attention to what's going on with us, which has now brought attention on to other people. So if mine gets resolved, and I'm not trying to say I'm a hero, there's no arrogance in this, but I am not afraid of the fight. I've been a fighter my whole life, and it's not ever going to change. And if it comes to fighting for my family, there's no end to that. So I have taken on this community that I live in and has now become their extensions of my family. And I take that pretty personal, but I don't want to walk away from this. Well, I just got my way, so I'm going to just walk away from it. Now, when I say the fight, believe me, I'm not like going to do like some Waco standoff. I mean, the fight to me is you do it legally, you do it intelligently, and you don't do it to where you have news stations and vans parked outside your house waiting to see what happens. I'm not afraid to do this from the inside out either. I'm not afraid to run for office. I'm not afraid to move into a political career if that's what's required. But I've started this, and I'm going to finish it when it's so we get it done legally. So we get it written appropriately. I get that you have a new house, and a lot of people like to buy an RV, put their RV on their land, and then build their house, and that's great. There's nothing. I wish I could do that myself, but you do need to have some leniency, and there does need to be some sort of legislation or some language in these that allows for you to adjust and get your family whole again.
Or, I don't know. Here's a novel concept too, Jim. I mean, just to be blunt, people, these county executives, city folks, whoever they are, whatever office they hold, they could just, I don't know, follow the Constitution maybe. I mean, because the Constitution limits their powers, the scope of their powers, what they can do as far as, anything. They could just start following the Constitution, and I don't know, we probably wouldn't have most of these headaches by doing that very simple thing. What do you think?
You'd still be able to manage your finances and help your county grow. I've preached to my kids, and my dad put this in my head too, that if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And I even tell my kids' friends when they come over, because they get they're a little intimidated because I'm a cop at times. Look, that's not me. I'm not that cop, but I have no trouble telling them what their rights are when they get stopped, and how to behave, and how to talk to police officers, and how not to talk to police officers. So that's part of my job. Like I take that seriously.
So, one last thing, Jim. Is there any type of like Facebook page or website or anything associated with this that people can kind of follow along with, or anything like that?
Yeah, let me see. I'm going to pull that. I'm going to give you the right title of it. So
Okay.
certainly don't. So it's Cass Countyans for codes and zoning reform. That's one of them. And then just let's see the other one. I don't remember what the other one is right off the top of my head, but that's the main one that I put it on, and it's Pleasant Hill, Missouri Republicans Club is another one that's on there.
Okay.
So I've been on that one as well, and all been pretty helpful as far as passing information and getting people involved, and it's so heartwarming to see how people come together to help other people out. The American people are the most giving people on the planet. When it comes down to getting things done and handling things, they will step in way before the government does. And we've seen it. We've seen it in California. We've seen it in North Carolina. We saw it in New Orleans with Katrina. Any disaster we've had, and mine pales in comparison to that. I am a tiny blip on the radar when it comes to that. But it's been changing, like a life changing experience, and for the better. Like if I can take something out of this, I've just changed my ways. And I was getting a little jaded. I was getting a little cynical, and that happens with what you do in my career, and it also happens when you get older, I guess. I'm not that way now. I don't feel any of it.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Jim, we really appreciate your time tonight with us and explaining your situation, and we hope that, unfortunately, people go through this. Fires happen. Unfortunately, you can't stop all fires, but it's good to bring these local tyrannical acts to light, and important for people to hear about them and reinforce this idea that a lot of these restrictions and everything are really unnecessary, and in situations like yours, they're not humane. There's no humanity in them. It's just another rule that somebody's going to enforce because, well, it's on the book, so I have to do it. No matter how inhumane or just kind of immoral they are, and hopefully maybe this will light a fire under some people in their check out what ordinances and stuff that their county has and fight against this too. So we really appreciate you joining us tonight.
I really appreciate your courtesy. It's been great talking to you guys, and I'll keep you all posted on what goes on.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Jim.
Thanks,
Best
Jim.
of luck
Appreciate
of you,
it.
or best of luck to you.
Keep doing what you guys do. It's really a good thing to see.
Appreciate it. Have a great evening, Jim, and we'll keep in touch.
All right, sir. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That was Jim Totten. So I didn't know how long the conversation was going to go on this evening. I know that we've got other stuff to talk about. I got one thing that I want to talk about tonight, and that was, listen, we all know that X and Facebook and everything else is, on certain subjects, is split 50-50. But the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith thing on Joe Rogan, the people coming out and saying that Douglas Murray just wiped the floor with Dave Smith and all this other stuff. And now I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I've heard some long clips. And it just seemed like Douglas Murray was back and forth making a fool of himself. And it's like, how much Kool-Aid do you have to drink to look at that and say, oh, Douglas Murray won? He really showed up Dave Smith. That just cracked me right up. Go ahead.
My favorite was, I was just going to say, my favorite one of those was Cuomo. When Cuomo chimed in to be like, Douglas Murray really put Dave Smith in his place on expertise and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you are the last guy who gets to comment on this debate.
Yes.
You were part of that expert class. Like, you're like, I'm a commentator on CNN, so I can talk down to people taking ivermectin, and I can talk down to the COVID blah, blah, blah. and then you get trashed by Dave Smith in a debate, you just keep quiet. Why would you even come out and say anything? So stupid. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
cut you
you're
off.
good.
What were you-
Absolutely. I saw his comment and I was like, wow, you, Chris, Chris. And I mean, he gets on, what was that? Patrick Bet-David with Dave Smith and does that whole thing. And he kept saying, well, I didn't say that. We didn't say that. We didn't do that. And then they just pull up the clip and like, you clearly did do that. There's you right there saying what you said you just didn't say. So Chris was in cover-up mode. Douglas Murray was all over the place. And it's just like, oh my God, what the heck? I don't know. Again, it's the internet. You have morons on all sides and there are libertarians that don't like Dave Smith, okay? And there are Republicans and Democrats that don't like Dave Smith. And there are libertarians and Republicans and Democrats that like Douglas Murray. So you got that automatic split. They're not even going to listen to anything. It's just automatically their guy won, which drives me absolutely up the wall when people do that. It's like, no, listen to it and see. But like I said, I've heard very extended clips of this. So there was nothing out of context. You got to hear that whole, spiel of whatever was being discussed. And you're just like, how does anyone look at that and say that Douglas Murray absolutely throttled Dave Smith? Now again, I happen to like Dave Smith. I happen to be a big fan. Somebody put on X the other day their dream team of president and vice presidential candidate. It was Thomas Massey for president and Dave Smith as the vice president. And I was like, you would have to shoot me in the face with a bazooka to get me to not vote for that ticket. Like all day long, I'm voting Massey and Smith ticket. You'd probably have to tie a string to my ankle and pull me back down to the earth if that ticket was ever on the ballot. Like I would be floating in the air because like, oh my God, two people who kind of have a sense of what's right and wrong as far as our U.S. policy, our foreign policy, all these things. Oh my God, two guys that have a deep understanding of things. And then you just about guarantee you get now again, folks, this is like never going to happen because the establishment would do anything to keep those two guys from running together on a ticket. But just think, you get Massey and Smith, president and vice president, and then you bring in Scott Horton for like foreign policy advice, like the foreign policy advisor. Oh my goodness. Like the media, the establishment in both parties, there would just be, these people would have such a meltdown. There would be puddles of goo everywhere. It would be, what do they call that? Oh, spontaneously combusting in their seats. Just bursting into flames in anger. We can't let these three people into office. Holy crap, our whole system's going to just lose all of its funding or whatever. So, yeah, it's a dream. It's a great dream. But, yeah, I don't know how you couldn't get a much better ticket than that.
I think if Thomas Massey was president, I think Dick Cheney probably has night terrors of that. Like Dick Cheney wakes up in a cold sweat and his nightmare was Thomas Massey as president. But so I watched the whole debate as soon as it came out. Like this, as soon as it dropped on, was that Thursday or Friday? I went straight, it was Thursday night last week. I went straight home and watched it. And dude, it was the first half hour at least was just Douglas Murray telling Joe Rogan how bad he is for not having more experts on when it comes to different topics. And so he kind of, Dave Smith said, I saw a little clip of this where he was like, it wasn't that I won the debate. It wasn't that I outmaneuvered his logic. It was that he lost it. He lost the plot. I know you've probably seen this, but it's the Good Morning Liberty clip they posted.
I was just going to pull it up.
Pull that up.
So we can all.
Yeah. So basically, for the audience that's listening, this is Douglas Murray versus Douglas Murray.
And it, excuse me, it is at almost 6 million views now. Let me dial this all the way back. Hit play.
Have you been to the crossing points? I really resent that form of argumentation.
When were you last there at all?
Sure. I really resent it.
You should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
This is not an attractive invitation.
I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you spend a career talking about something.
I have the right to talk about whatever the hell I want. And no one's going to stop me or try to intimidate me. And I think that if I said to somebody else the other way around, it would be equally reprehensible.
I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country even in passing unless I've at least been there.
If I said, shut up, you have no right to criticize anything that Douglas Murray says because...
Hang on, you're talking about crossing points. And not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. It's not an exact comparison, but seriously, is that a reasonable form of argument? No. In that case, nobody can talk about anything. We might as well pack up, go home, and isolate ourselves.
If you're insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, if you've never seen any of this going on.
I mean, there are some people who've written about there are people who've written about the Holocaust who didn't experience the Holocaust and have written about it better than people who did.
But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit whilst developing all of these views about it.
This idea that the lived experience has to triumph over everything else is not always correct.
Should at least know what it is, what the territory is, what the situation is in the region.
So there's an irony to this, but let's skate over the irony.
It's so...
That was the whole debate. Like, that was basically it. So at one point, Douglas Murray is talking about how is talking down on Daryl Cooper for the Winston Churchill stuff. And he was talking about, well, they take one little thing and then they characterize the whole person based on that one little thing and ignore the whole body of work. And so then Joe Rogan goes, well, have you listened to Daryl? Have you listened to Daryl Cooper's like full thing? And he goes, well, no, I don't have to listen to the full thing. And he's like, so you literally, like, your argument was that Daryl Cooper shouldn't be talking about Winston Churchill because he's wrong about this one certain thing. And so Douglas Murray can ignore the entire body of work, which is exactly what he was accusing Daryl Cooper of doing. It was, the whole thing was just, it was absurd. And the reason I wanted to talk about it, and I think it's kind of important, is because like 2 days later, Donald Trump had some long post about how amazing Douglas Murray is. I'll see if I can find that, but it's crazy how like people act like, oh, Twitter's not the real world, things like that. But people like, it's debates like Dave Murray. It's like Douglas Murray versus Dave Smith is, first of all, it's really the most that I can remember, one of the most prominent neoconservatives arguing against Dave, bringing up one of these discussions. So I think it's important because I think this is where the narrative might start shifting. So if these experts, so-called experts, get exposed on this topic, like we saw with COVID, when you expose the experts, then the narrative will start to change. And so if you, with this right here, this may be the start of a movement of people, shifting their view away from this, we have to support Israel all the time mentality.
Yeah, like I said, it was so funny. The part where he's like, well, people have written Holocaust or, books on the Holocaust that are better than people who have lived it. And it's like, so, the first half hour, it was just appeal to experts. We need more experts. You need to have more experts on the show. You need to do this and you need to do that. And I just thought, and then it's, these revisionist history. Yeah, because he literally said he didn't digest any of Daryl Cooper's work. He has digested none of it. He hasn't listened to one iota of it. Now, everybody wants to beat up on Daryl Cooper over his Churchill comments, right? But he literally said in interviews he was being hyperbolic. They leave that out when they say anything about Daryl Cooper and his Winston Churchill comments. He said, I'm being hyperbolic with my friends when I say this. But they leave that out. They leave the hyperbolic part of his statement out when he said it the first time. the first few times, he always said, I'm being hyperbolic. And they just leave that out. And they're like, he thinks Winston Churchill's worse than Stalin and Hitler. It's like, well, you all go around acting like Stalin was great and only Hitler was bad. Look how many people Stalin murdered. Y'all leave that out of the equation. You don't even discuss it. It's like, well, we had to befriend Stalin and help him out and send him all this stuff while he murdered more people than Hitler. I'm not saying Stalin was worse than Hitler in his ideologies. I'm just saying they're fine with sweeping everything Stalin's done under the rug when it's between him and Hitler. But how dare you say Churchill did anything awful? You know, that he didn't have some villainous tendencies or some of the things that he did. You must worship at the altar of Churchill. But again, it comes to Stalin, they don't say nothing. They don't say anything. They'll just, oh, well, you know, it's like it was a necessary thing. We had to have him in his murderous way of doing things. We just had to have that so we could beat Hitler. I don't know. The whole thing drives me absolutely insane, but it's also, I do find some form of sick entertainment in it too. I have to admit that watching these people go back and forth about who did better and who whooped whose butt. But all props to Nate and Chuck from Good Morning Liberty for putting that video together because that was fantastic. That was 1 minute and 48 seconds of Douglas Murray contradicting himself. And, you know, I was listening to one of their latest shows this morning and you know, Nate's like, did I take anything out of context when I stitched this video together? And he's like, maybe, but, you know, everybody else does too. These people take clips of what fits their agenda or what ideas they want to put forth to the American people on how to villainize someone. And they do it every day in the media. They take things out of context every day. Well, you can't do that to Douglas Murray because he's some kind of national treasure. Here's the thing. I know the guy sounds like he may not be trying to sound. It's part of it's his British accent. The dude sounds so pompous when he talks. It's like he's talking down to you, and then he's got the British accent on top, which makes it even more pompous. And it's like nails on a chalkboard. Listen to that guy talk. Well, sir, you don't drink the Queen's tea, so surely you're a piece of crap. It's like, well, Douglas, you're a turd too, dude. People don't like you. You're a snob. So anyway, this has been a really entertaining last few days since that debate came out.
Well, also because it was on Rogan too. So like, that's the #1 podcast in the world.
Yeah.
So it's millions and millions of people heard it, and so yeah, there's a lot to digest in there. There was one point Douglas Murray made that well, you know what? I guess we can't really be talking about this, though, because we weren't on Joe Rogan's show. Unless you're there, you can't really be talking. Like, it's weird for us to be taking this stance since we weren't on Joe Rogan. No, that was another stupid argument, is when he was like, you've never been to Israel? You've never been to the border? And he's like, well, then I don't know how you could possibly make a claim like that if you haven't been there to see it. Have you seen what he's talking about when he says he's been there?
Mm-mm.
Dude, the Israeli government took him on like they gave him his own guided tour, and because he's so pro on their side, there was a giant. Oh man, I'm blanking on the word, but it was like just a giant
publicity
pony
stunt.
show. Yeah, it was a giant publicity stunt. Thank you. Yes, it was a giant publicity stunt. It was all fair. It was just for him to go in there and be like, wow, they're trying so hard not to bomb so many women and children. They're trying hard not to bomb camps full of people. It's amazing. And so, no, it was just, I mean, it was so hard to get through. And it is 3 full hours, and it is so hard to just, like, I found myself towards the end just like kind of skipping every minute whenever Douglas Murray would talk. Because he would just talk with such, like, as Dave Smith put it, it was like he went there to do anything but debate on the topics. Like, he came there to, like, deflect and attack a straw man and, logical fallacy his way out of the 3 hours. But it's Joe Rogan, and it's 3 hours. So eventually he just got, have you seen the clip about the Paul Wolfowitz thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. Because to bring up a guy named Paul Wolfowitz, he goes, his last name is a deadly animal, and then it's Jewish. So when you bring up Paul Wolfowitz, you're evoking Jewish hatred, and you must know this, Dave. You must know this. And it's just like, what? You can have an ugly, terrible last name and still be part of the neocon establishment that drove us into war. Like, you can be part of Dick Cheney's network of a secret government that led us into all of our Middle Eastern conflicts.
Yeah, the guy that wanted to help foment the 7 wars or 7 nations in 5 years thing.
Yeah, so that was where is it McMaster is the no, not whoever that general was that that
Oh God,
Scott Horton debated. I don't think it's McMaster,
no,
but I'm
but God dang it. Now I gotta
Wesley
look.
Clark, General
There you
Wesley
go.
Clark. Yes.
There you go.
So he's talking about Wesley Clark said that the first time he saw those plans, the 7 countries in 5 years, was in 1991 by Paul Wolfowitz. And that was that was just a very small detail into Dave's larger point that American neocon establishment has been trying to facilitate these wars on behalf of Israel for 30 plus years. And he, like, again, Douglas Murray just does everything he can to avoid talking about anything of substance. Like I said, just then goes on to a 10-minute tangent about how Paul Wolfowitz, just saying his name, is going to evoke Jewish hatred, and you can't be doing that. And what's funny is Dave rightly pointed out that Douglas Murray made like a big jump in his career being anti-Muslim immigration into Britain, saying it's a detriment to the country. And that, when you say something like that, when you're like, I'm anti-immigration, if I was anti-immigration on our southern border and some of my fans or followers were like, I don't like Mexican people, that's not on me. I'm going to have my point about something, but that doesn't mean everything that everyone says who follows me is my statement or I'm responsible for it, or that I have to browbeat them every 5 seconds. Like, you can make a public statement, I'm against immigration, but I love Mexican people. And I don't, if you have something negative to say about Mexican people in general, I think that's misguided. You don't have to keep saying that every time you also bring up the other point. It's like they always attack, like Konstantin Kisin. He's always doing that to Dave. He's always talking about, he's like, you never browbeat your supporters enough. And he's like, because I don't need to. It's like, that's not the arguments that I'm making. And I don't stand behind every evil thing that one of my followers says. And Douglas Murray tries to rope him into that right there. And Dave Smith's like, you're the last guy who should be bringing this up.
That's the thing. Even with our audience, right? If we had to go around and put in disclaimers for what people who watch this show or listen to the show thought, we'd have to spend half the show doing disclaimers, because people who listen to us or watch us have differing viewpoints than we do, and so we don't offend the rest of the viewers or the listeners, we have to put in all these disclaimers. No, I'm not going to sit here. Now, if you're saying ignorant things in live chat or whatever, I'm just going to gloss over it. I've had people in the live chats on other things, and they'll say stuff about the Jews. It's just Jews. I'm like, we can't literally go blame this on all the Jews. I have never been somewhere and there's just boatloads of Jews everywhere trying to start another war. You don't see reporters out on the street following Jews around going, hey, what do you think about this new thing with Syria? No, because not all Jews want war. But I've seen it in our live chat, and I'm like, what are you doing? I ignore it, because I'm like, I'm not even going to give that any thought. I'm not going to sit here and try to debate you because you think that Jews are behind everything. Don't get me wrong. Our current foreign policy seems to has a lot to do with what the Likud party and Netanyahu in Israel want, but I'm not going to sit here on this show, and I know, Brandon, you're not either. We're not going to sit here and like, yep, can't trust a Jew. Those people just want to bomb you and give you money to go blow up brown people. All Jewish people want to do that. But I literally hear this, and I'm like, why are you condensing it down to Jews? Why don't you say Netanyahu and the Likud party and some of the sycophant neocons we have in the U.S.? You could, because that's factual. Those people do want these things, but I don't think you can just lump all Jewish people into this argument and say, yep, they're all dirty and you can't. It's like, okay, I know this is a stretch, right? That's the same mentality that fascists have, that you just lump everyone into one category. Okay, are we FDR now? Well, we're in a world war and Japan attacked us, so all the Japanese people in this country have to go to internment camps. That's basically what, without the use of force and throwing them all into one camp, that's the start of a really bad mentality. When you do that to any nationality of people, that's really, really stupid. And it lends to these other bad things that follow behind it. So be very careful before you just accuse a whole nationality of people of being a certain way. I mean, it's easy to make fun of the French because they're French, but I'm sure there's French people out there that are actually good people. But we always love to say, what do the French do when someone's coming? I surrender. But, other than that, it's just a little joke. But I don't think that all French people are weird and, rude or whatever. So I don't know. That whole thing got me ticked off, but I get what you're saying.
But we don't have to sit on this show and do this every episode and talk about how, like every time we make a point about Israel, we don't have to come on here and say we're not talking about all Jews. We should be allowed to make our point about Israel. And, if the comments get nasty, that's on the commenter. Like, that's not on, like, we bear no responsibility for someone else's freedom of speech.
Right.
And that's what I hate what Douglas Murray tried to do to Dave Smith, is that, like, no. And like I said, when I get on here, I don't have to constantly say that I also think Hamas is a bad group. I can, it should be, I guess I will say it again, but again, it's common sense that I'm not talking about, I think Hamas needs to eliminate, anyone. It's that I think Israel's response was disproportionate, and it is with American weapons and American money. So, and I don't, again, it's such a, the whole debate was just such a straw man. It was just attacking someone who was not in the room versus Dave Smith actually making points about what he was there to debate.
Well, and so then you have comments like, I had a post on X, but sometimes I'll scroll through X for 3 minutes. I'll see a really dumb post and I'll just say, dumbest take of the day goes to whoever. And this Abby Libby on X. There are no civilians in Gaza. Hamas has drafted everyone, down to the newest babies, into the war effort, and they rejoice when the children they shove into the line of fire die because it's their most powerful weapon against those they hate more than life and blood. I mean, come on. Now, if I had someone in the live chat, somebody typed that in the live chat, I wouldn't even give that the time of day. In fact, I'd probably just block them. Even though there's freedom of speech, I don't know that I want anyone that retarded making comments in my live chat. I would be like, okay, you fell out of the stupid tree and hit every limb on the way down to the ground. So let's just block all your comments, because I don't even want to cause that kind of stir. I've had years ago, a couple years ago, Patrick Holland was on my show for his monthly thing. And somebody came in, and I know they were trying to stir the pot a little bit. They were talking about trans issues and all this stuff. And now on that one, because he kept typing, I brought it up because the things he was typing, I was like, oh my God. Now I kind of lit into him a little bit, but here was the interesting part. That certain individual that did that did not fire nasty shots back at the live chat. That person was actually very courteous and then left the chat. And I was like, I even pointed that out. It's like, that's very unusual, because generally when people come in and type that kind of crap, they're looking to stir the pot. They're just being, crap posters, and they're being trolls. That person, I guess, genuinely felt that way. I kind of lit into him a little bit, because it's like conservatives just need to just kind of give in a little bit. And I was like, and then when he typed that, it ticked me off. And then I just blew up for 5 solid minutes and went on a rant. But I did give that individual props as they were leaving to thank them for being courteous and not just name calling and doing all this stuff. They put their points of view up, and then after a little bit of discussion, they left. And I was like, that's fantastic, because that is not the normal behavior that we see in the internet of people who generally think like that. You know, I was listening to Bearing Arms with Cam and Company. It's a podcast. Everything they do is on 2A stuff, right? I was talking to somebody out of Oregon, and he's like, you know, we have someone who identifies as a turtle giving mental health advice in Oregon. He's like, think about that for a minute. They literally identify as a turtle giving mental health advice to the government of Oregon as an advisor. And I was like, well, so, you know, if you were going to have a conversation, if a person like that came into the live chat and we started kind of giving it back, you know, the automatic responses were transphobes, we're homophobes, we're fascists. They're going to give you the generalized talking points that they always do, because they have no facts to back them up, and they don't have enough brain cells to come up with anything logical in their defense. They just want to come on and stir crap and then go get high fives from their two friends that they have, which are probably inside their head because they don't actually have any friends. But regardless, I was just happy to see that person was, even though we disagreed very much on the policies, that was, to me, that was a one-off from generally what you would get from people of that ilk. So that was very nice to see.
Yeah, a rare moment of humanity on the internet.
It'd be like me it'd be like me catching gonorrhea from a unicorn. It's a rarity. That's like a one-off. That's like being struck by lightning or winning the Powerball.
So before we wrap up on this, I will say this is what Donald Trump said. Again, this was the day after the debate. My friend Douglas Murray just released a new book on democracies and death cults, and it's quickly becoming a bestseller. Based on his firsthand reporting, Douglas documents the barbarity of Hamas's brutal attack on Israel on October 7th and Israel's heroic response. The book serves as a strong reminder of why we must always stand up for America and our great ally, Israel. A powerful read from a highly respected author. Get your copy today. There's no way he read that book. No. There's no way Donald Trump has read that book. Not a chance.
And I happen to agree with what Nate and Chuck said on their show when they played that audio that we played a bit ago. That book is sitting there in one part of the video, and they bring it up, and Chuck's like, it just seems like he was there hoping just to say anything, call it a debate, and then because he just released a book, get those book sales up. But Nate's like, I don't know if he hurt himself or helped himself, because he was so useless in that forum that Rogan and Dave Smith put on, or that Rogan put on with Dave Smith, that I don't know if he helped his book sales or if he actually hurt him. It's pretty that is a valid point. Like, you might actually hurt your book sales.
If he would have actually if he would have raised some any valid arguments that like Dave and him could have gone back and forth on, then I might have been like, I probably wouldn't have bought it, but I mean, it could have spurred my interest enough to, like, if I'm going to talk a bunch of trash on Douglas Murray, then, you know, if he brought up valid points, then I would read the book, maybe. But now there's no way I'm getting that book. Like, there are so many other books I haven't read by authors that I actually respect that I'm not bumping my way up the list for Douglas Murray's praising of Israel. I mean, come on. And then it's just ironic timing to me that he posts that the day after the debate. Like, I really think because Douglas Murray was on Rogan and got kind of trashed, like the consensus, not the consensus, because like you said, Douglas Murray had fans going into this, and there are some people who just aren't gonna be able to look at this objectively. And I personally, I couldn't, like, I'm not either. Like, I was going into that the whole time thinking that, just waiting for Dave Smith to tear apart Douglas Murray's arguments. So I'm not going to say I went in there, but the more of the comments we're reading and of the feedback from the debate, it's clear that a lot of people think Douglas Murray crapped the bed. And so yeah, now I would definitely there's 0% chance I'm going to read his book now. 0% chance.
Yeah, no, I have no interest in reading whatever the man put forth because, good God Almighty, I don't know. It's just funny. I love this kind of stuff. I like it when two people debate and one's just clearly not prepared. They have a point of view, and because they have a certain size following and they just have a group of people that follow behind them that just automatically think that they're awesome, regardless of how poorly they perform. But I love seeing one who's so pompous and just spreads the narrative without really having done a lot of research, and then somebody else comes on, especially a podcaster or comedian, and just absolutely destroys them. Now, what I would want to see, and I would actually pay good money to see, is watch Scott Horton debate Douglas Murray on Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, whatever. I would love to see Scott Horton. I don't think Douglas Murray is dumb enough, as dumb as he is, I don't think he's dumb enough to debate Scott Horton. But I would pay a pretty good fee to watch that, because Scott Horton would destroy that man. No doubt about it.
Oh yeah, the only reason Douglas Murray agreed to it at all is because it was on Rogan.
Yeah.
Like, and he just wrote a book.
But
so like both of those together is the only reason you got him to show up to that place in the first place with Dave Smith. Like, he's not, you would never catch Douglas Murray at the Soho Forum against anyone with any logic. Like, he'd go on the Soho Forum debate to debate somebody he knows he can win in an argument too, like on a topic he knows he can win. But he's not going to go to a Soho Forum debate with Scott Horton on anything. The guy who wrote the book Neoconservatism and Why We Need It, that's another Douglas Murray gem. Neoconservatism and Why We Need It. And just, I mean, that I would, like you said, I would pay $25, $50. I would invite my friends over. I'd make it a whole thing.
Just a whole pay-per-view event. Maybe that's the thing we should work on. We should try to get as many people to petition Joe Rogan to invite Scott Horton and Douglas Murray onto his show and have them debate.
We start a GoFundMe, and we ask, like, how much? We'll start a GoFundMe. How much to get you on here to debate Scott Horton?
Yeah, that would be fun. Can we get Scott Horton on that show to destroy Douglas Murray? Now, you're never going to destroy his career. Douglas Murray's going to have those people behind him no matter what. The neocons, the people who follow along and think that we have to do these things in the Middle East because there are terrible people there. Speaking of the Middle East, let me see if I can find this real quick, because I was just like, I didn't even read the article. I just read the headline. Okay, so I don't know what's in the article. I saw the headline and I went, "Oh God, this is one of those things where I just go, okay, I don't understand what." There was such hypocrisy in it. Now, watch, I won't be able to find this. Oh, yeah, here we go. Let me see. The U.S. ends so the U.S. ends life-saving food aid for millions. World Food Program calls it a death sentence. The Trump administration had ended funding to the UN World Food Program, helping keep millions. Now, pay attention to the people in, or the countries in here. Millions alive in Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, and 11 other impoverished countries. So, I had a comment. Oh, I guess a bunch of other. I put in there and I said, oh, wait. So we bomb these countries through proxy wars or straight up wars. And then we dole out a bunch of money to feed these same people that we just indiscriminately killed. Maybe it's time to change our foreign policy. Now, as far as I know, no one had any reply to my comment. It was all TDS style replies or whatever. It's like, do you not? That's the thing that bugs me, right? They'll get all butthurt about that. But I don't ever see these same people with an outcry about Obama's drone campaign in Yemen, basically helping out the Al Qaeda, right? And then Biden funding Saudi Arabia to continue pounding the crap out of Yemen. What we did in Syria, what we attempted to do in Syria, what we did for 20 years in Afghanistan. These people are not crying foul. But as soon as you end food aid, that's the end of the world. We are terrible people. What about our foreign policy? What about the things we've been doing over there for decades? You guys don't have anything to say about that. That speaks volumes to me. That's horrifying to me that you're absolutely fine with all the we don't want to speak ill of the military and our government. Okay, but you think that we'd have to aid those people with all that food if we weren't blowing them to smithereens constantly or funding other people to do it? Do you think we'd have to send food to millions of people if we weren't destabilizing a whole region of the world, the Middle East? Do you think we'd have to spend? No, we wouldn't. But you don't see it that way. Now, again, I don't care if Biden was in the White House, Trump was in, especially since it's Trump. If this is all true, now this is I'm basing on this, my statement on if the facts in this article are true. But if that paragraph is true? Most of those people are upset because Trump's doing it. If Biden's doing it, the media probably wouldn't say a freaking word about it. You wouldn't hear anything about it. And those people probably wouldn't even hardly care. It's Trump's doing it, so we must be upset. But again, there's no backlash on the foreign policy that we've been following for decades. Nothing. It's silence. And that really pisses me off.
Yeah. Yes. It is the lack of being able to connect what happened in the past to what we're doing right now. Like whenever Trump talks about how he wants to turn Gaza into an economic zone and force out 1.9 million people, like just forcibly remove 2 million people from their homes, and then try to leave a military force in there to oversee it. I mean, again, I think it would be like if the entire St. Louis area got kicked out of their homes, and then you expect no one to be upset? Like, you expect that to just go swimmingly? Not to mention if a terrorist group lived inside of there. So a terrorist group of 40,000 strong theoretically speaking, would live inside of St. Louis County, that area. And then you're going to tell them all they have to leave. They all have to go to Illinois, or they all have to move to northern Missouri or southern Missouri. and then we're going to have to leave troops there to protect that region because we just kicked out 1.9 million people from their homes. And you think no one's going to be upset? I mean, it's insane. It's insane policy. And we're doing it again. And not a peep from any conservatives. You get Thomas Massey, Rand Paul. You get a couple of them. But the conservatives are absolutely silent on continuing the same miserable Middle Eastern foreign policy that we've had.
And again, the Democrats are quiet, and they're supposed to be the anti-war party. And they're saying a little bit, but they're not really putting up much of a fight.
Well, it's so stupid too, because it's all of the people who are actually not all of them, I'm not trying to generalize, but there are a lot of people who are I went to it was called a pro-Palestine rally, right? I just wanted to check it out. I wasn't there hard protesting with a sign, but I just wanted to check it out, right? I wanted to see what it was like. And it actually turned into a socialist rally. There were people up there who weren't talking about Palestine. They were talking about how they wanted social justice, racial justice, ethnic justice, all these different types of justices. And so it's dude, where is the grounded, sophisticated anti-war movement in this country? Like, the only people who will show up to protest are also socialists. So, like, I'm not going to that. Like, I'm not going to continue to show up to the socialist rally just because I'm against my money going to Israel. But it's just crazy how, like, that's what our, like, that's the anti-war movement right now, is the socialist movement. Like, I'm not ready to jump on that wagon just yet. Like, I know you got to build coalitions to make change sometimes, but I think that just is a bridge I'm not willing to cross yet, is to, like, just be me with a bunch of socialists. Like, there were zero conservative anti-war people at this rally. Zero.
And you got to give socialists their due. They can pull together a rally really quick, and then they can go off topic real quick too, and change it into this, again, social justice policies. It's like, can we just not talk about that this time and just talk about, I don't know, what we're doing in the Middle East? Again, what happened in Syria? There's Christians being killed willy-nilly. Crickets. We're still blowing the crap out of Yemen. Crickets. But we didn't give them food.
Yeah.
What? I don't know. Okay, you got to pick one or the other. Stop blowing them to smithereens and give them food, or bomb the crap out of them, but don't turn around. What? Okay, think about it this way, dude. Let's say Illinois started a war with Missouri, right? Which, good luck, because a lot of those, especially if Cook County came down here, they'd get their clocks clean, because those people most of them don't know how to fire a firearm correctly. Let's just say they invaded Missouri, and somehow they just took out St. Louis, and then they turned around and sent them food. What a mixed signal you're sending. Like, hey, we think you're awful people. You've got some terrible people in your country. And we know we hit a lot of innocent civilians trying to kill these two guys. We'll make it up to you. Here's some MREs. And they're like,
oh, it's one guy.
Yeah, but I mean, just saying, overall.
No, right,
you
right.
go
right.
after one.
I know, I'm just joking.
Well, yeah, the last one was one guy they saw him going into an apartment building, just level the whole apartment building, and then it's a bunch of applause. And then you send them food. And they're like, dude, I don't even have a house right now. You took my house. Where am I supposed to put the food? I got to live in a tent?
Not even to mention, if we would just get rid of, like, if you would just take off these crazy sanctions. Like, you can't be sanctioning a country and then also be giving them aid. Like, just get rid of all of it. No more aid, no more sanctions, no more bombing, and just, the Houthis don't have a missile that can reach the United States. It doesn't even have a missile that can, I mean, I'm sure some of the missiles could reach military bases, but, like, and some shipping lanes, but, like, for the average American, there is no threat from the Houthis. So we don't need to be fighting them. All we're doing is provoking them.
And, I know that, what year was it? It was, I think it was when Clinton was in office. And they shot off what they call it, the Monica missiles. They did a bomb strike in Iraq during Clinton's campaign. It was right when she was testifying to a Senate committee hearing. And so he went in there, tried to divert the news away from what was going on there. But Ron Paul was on the floor of the House at that time saying, this is not a good idea. You're creating enemies. I'm warning you now, you're creating enemies. And they sure as heck did. But, I think Clinton was also in office when that school shooting took place in, I think it was Columbine, right? So on the day of Columbine, and not too long after that, maybe the next day, because the media was so focused on the Columbine story that Clinton's cabinet decided to bomb one of the biggest bombing campaigns in, like, Serbia or Bosnia or something.
It's Bosnia. Yeah. In Serbia, but is the Bosnia against the Bosnians.
He dropped that was the largest amount of bombs dropped during that campaign, was right at Columbine time, because everybody was focused on that, so nobody was. That's what bothers me. That's what bothers me sometimes. People get so distracted by these, this shiny object thing. Like, oh, look, they're gonna they're going to take away your Social Security, and then they go over and they sneak over and they do some other crap because the media is so focused on the Social Security thing that nobody's paying attention to awful foreign policy things that we're also doing. It just, except for the people who have their head screwed on right and they're looking in the right direction, the majority of the country's looking at Social Security thinking Trump's going to take away all their money. And then because they know the American people aren't focused on anything going over in the Middle East, that's the best time to drop big loads of bombs because nobody's paying attention. And that's also infuriating. That's why I made that post on X this morning. I'm not the best at putting my thoughts into words, but that's, I simply put a post on X this morning and said our government and our country was founded and on the blood of men who wanted liberty, and now our government it's built on the blood of a lot of innocent people in a lot of other countries. This government isn't by and for the people. It's bought and paid for, and the only thing they're for is making more money off military contracts or what do they call insider trading or whatever, but it is not a government of, for, and by the people. It is founded now on bloodshed. And 98% of the people in Congress have blood on their hands because they will just continue to fund the war in Ukraine. They were fine with 20 years of war in Afghanistan and the Middle East, and now they're okay with what's going on in Syria, and they're okay with what's going on in Israel and Palestine, or the Palestinians. They're okay with the Yemen stuff. It's like, man, liberty to them, liberty be damned for the most of them. Liberty be damned. We've got money to make, and we got brown people to kill, and that seems to be where the focus is at. And, you try to warn people that our economy is so based on war anymore that they're afraid if they just stop blowing things up and stop giving the military contracts out like that, our economy will collapse. Now, whose fault is that? It is not mine. It's not Brandon's. It's not a lot of you listening out there in the audience. It's those sick freaks in buildings in D.C. and all the think tank groups and the lobbying organizations and all that. They're responsible, but who pays the ultimate price? We all do. Those people got boatloads of money. They'll live it up. The rest of us will be scraping by or fighting each other for food. They don't care. They can cause all the heartache and bloodshed and misery they could possibly drum up. But we pay the ultimate price for this, for their actions.
Right. Well, like we were talking about a couple weeks ago, Boeing gets that giant contract, and politicians can't race to the microphone fast enough to praise it. Like we just announced, we have the first $1 trillion defense budget, and we're bragging about that. Like we pay $1 trillion a year to service the debt we have, and now we have the first $1 trillion defense budget. Like like we're supposed to hail Trump for some magical big win. It's so. Like I said, it's a death sentence in the St. Louis area to be against Boeing. But for the amount of tax dollars that they draw from the American people, hundreds of billions of dollars a year, if you don't work at Boeing, you lose out. Like you are paying for their job. And whenever they announce that they're building new planes and they're building new bombs and they're announcing new wars, that's only good for the people who work at that building and the people who own it. But that is not beneficial to me whenever my land, the land of the United States, and the people within it are not in danger from these places we're dropping all these bombs. They're not. And so at a certain point, you just have to understand that appeasing big business is part of that crony capitalism that you're always talking about. Like, that's the bigger picture that you're missing, is that a giant company was just given your money to make weapons. It's infuriating that you can't even begin to talk about that where I'm like up here. Like you're pretty close, so it's probably similar where you're at. But like where I'm at, if I went to work and I was like, man, I can't believe Boeing got that contract. That's way too much money, or I wish we didn't actually need it. People's heads would explode, and so it's just a sad truth, but it is. I mean, like when I give speeches in politics, I sometimes have to avoid, depending on where I'm at, I'll like talk about Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and dynamic systems or whatever it's called, and but I'll have to sometimes avoid saying Boeing in that same group, just to alienating an entire audience right there. But they don't even realize that it's that you're propping up that you, the taxpayer, are propping up this entire industry every time you pay your taxes and support these wars.
Yeah, I wore a certain shirt today that I got from Gadsden and Culpeper.com. I love some of their shirts. They got a lot of great founding father quotes on their T-shirts, and I have one today. And I wore it in, and I was standing there, and one of my coworkers, I could feel her like reading my shirt. She didn't make a comment after, but I could just feel her reading my shirt, and I was like, I wonder what she's thinking right now. But I have a shirt, and it says on the front, I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. And I love that quote. I love it. It's Thomas Jefferson. I love the quote. And I think sometimes when you put forth quotes like that, people don't know how to take it. Because in today's world, if you have a thought like this that's on the front of my shirt, and on the back it's got the opening lines from the U.S. or the Declaration of Independence on the back. I'll tell you one good thing. Folks, I'm not getting paid for this, but you go to Gadsden and Culpeper.com. I'm just going to bring it. I've done this before, but let's see. Gadsden and, if I could spell right. See if I can get there. Oh, really? All right, well, if I could spell it maybe the right way, then, yeah. Yeah, Gadsden. I spelled Culpeper wrong. So let me pull up the webpage here real quick. There's just all these great shirts. Like, I'll go to any other site, right, and I'll pull up a shirt, and the shirt might be $25, right? So here's a Jefferson T-shirt that I have in blue, Hostility to Tyranny, $14.95. Then there's a George Washington Freedom of Speech shirt. I don't even know what it says. If the freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. $13.95. Their website, I love their site because the shirts are cheaper, but the quality is not horrible. Like, I've had shirts of theirs that have lasted me years before they get holes in them and I have to finally toss them out. The material they're made from are great. The quotes and all the stuff they have, they've got patches, they've got hats, they've got long sleeve shirts, they've got hoodies, they got all kinds of stuff. In fact, at one point, me and the wife were supposed to buy matching hoodies, but I think it said Sic Semper Tyrannis on it. But anyway, it's a great site, but I love wearing these shirts around because people see them and they read them, and it's like when you have a quote like this on your shirt, I think some people think you're out there. Like, oh, this guy, he hates his government. Like, well, yeah, I really don't have any love for the government that's in power right now. You're right. But they tie that because the media and all these other talking heads have done such a good job. They tie what I would have on my shirt that's not my quote. I didn't say it. Thomas Jefferson said it. they would tie that to, oh, he doesn't like anything that goes, he's old fashioned and he doesn't want this. Like, no, I want you to live your life the way you want it. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, I could care less what you're doing. If you're not hurting kids, you're not hurting other people, you're not beating up, you're not going out willy-nilly beating up animals, you're not stealing anything, you're not damaging people's property. I don't care what you do. That's what I want. That's all I want. I want a government that I don't hardly have to ever interact with. And I want you to be able to live your life how you want, when you want, as long as you're not forcing it on somebody else or stealing from or damaging them, hurting people. I don't care what you do. And it just, that's not what people take away. There's too many people that don't take this away from this saying on my shirt. That is a huge problem in my book.
Oh, well, yeah. You bring up an interesting. We've talked about this before on the show, but one thing I think is fascinating to think about is when you're framing these conversations about patriotism or like opposing tyranny, like your shirt. Like what was patriotism in 1770? You know what I'm saying? It was like the way people frame patriotism nowadays is akin to like anybody who defies the king back whenever the colonies were still under British rule. And so you bring up like when you talk about the grievances of the Declaration of Independence, you talk about the king and his taxation policies of taxation without representation, all this. But like Donald Trump puts tariffs on. I mean, like our government runs with a very similar level of tyranny that the king had in England. Like their government is in every facet of our lives. And so to be opposed to that system in 1770, like we view that now as heroic and patriotic because you were against the king. And now, if you don't worship at the altar of Trump, you're a panicking, you're a traitor of this country, you're a libtard, you're all this other stuff. But in reality, but the same people, like those people would have been cheering on the king in 1770.
Yeah,
like whenever the government was stepping on your rights and infringing all over you, they would have been the ones cheering. Well, you got to support the king.
Yeah.
You got to respect the office of the throne. Like what?
If you when Biden was president, if you were on the right and you didn't support everything he said, you were a fascist. You were like Hitler. And now if you don't support Trump and everything he does, well, then you're some pinko commie and you're a piece of crap and you should just leave the country. And it's like, God, you guys so easily manipulated into thinking like this. Both sides of the political aisle are so easily manipulated into towing the government line. And it's just like, what are you like? And it's for us people who just want to be left alone. We're looking at you like I mean, if we had a time machine and we took people, the Trumpsters and the Kamala Harris or Joe Biden worshipers, and we took them back to Revolutionary War times, and it's like, hey, founders, we're from like 2025. Listen to these people. I mean, who's to say that like Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin or George Washington wouldn't cock back their pimp hand and slap them? Like, wait a minute. We're fighting right now against this, and you talking like 250 years you all acting like this? Like, what? Like, would they go, go, hey, guys, we need to rethink this? Because then, like, basically, let's say, by 1861, the start of the Civil War, they're like, it's not even 100 years later, and these people are already acting retarded. Like, is this worth it? I mean, would they like, is this really worth the fight? Because these people are going to jack it all up within less than 100 years.
Well, like imagine like you got Thomas Jefferson and George Washington alive today. Like they get, they time travel back to today, and they're like, so we seem to be in a lot of wars. Did Congress declare all these wars? Oh no, the executive office kind of just did that. Well, we put on a bunch of tariffs, a taxation. Congress must have done that too, right? No, the president did that. Actually,
yeah, we have a central bank that taxes a boatload of our wages, and then it's not apportioned, and it just feeds the interest on the money they print. And they're like, you did what?
Well, it's still backed by gold,
Yeah.
right?
No, sir, it's not. We're sorry. We didn't ask for this. That was people like that was 1913 on the Federal Reserve. So we're sorry. But you can climb into this time machine. You can go to 1913, bring your musket and rifles with you, and walk into Congress and go, we're back, and we see what you're about to do, and someone's going to have a big hole in their head if they don't stop right now. You know, we only got a couple minutes left. For those of you who are not familiar with some parts of passing the Federal Reserve Act, go back. Eustace Mullins has a book, Secrets of the Federal Reserve, the London Connection. But there was, so everybody, rightfully so, they, this group of bankers went to Jekyll Island. They formed this Federal Reserve Act, and then but there was a representative by the name of Nathan Aldrich who had the Aldrich Plan. Now, there were a lot of similarities in the Aldrich Plan and the Federal Reserve Act, right? So those two things were very similar, but they played the game at that time just like they do today. You'll have two very similar bills, but they'll demonize one as being horrible for the people and blah, 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 and they'll talk up the other one, and then during Christmas break, they pass the Federal Reserve Act when a bunch of lawmakers were at home, and they shove it through anyway. But they were playing this shuffle the deck, musical chairs with legislation even in 1913. This was very well acted out, and it fell right into their. Everybody went along with the plan, and they shuffled it through. Apparently, there's a book out there that's very hard to find that was written by two gentlemen. I guess they went to each state looking to see if they actually voted on that amendment. And they wrote a book called The Law That Never Was. Because I saw in the movie America, Freedom to Fascism from Aaron Russo that it was some kind of Supreme Court judge or some justice said, if you look back, it seems as though 2/3 of the states never ratified that amendment to the Constitution. And here we are, folks, our paychecks getting raped every pay period by our federal government. And so, again, we like to think, and rightfully so, again, we think that there's a lot of snakes in the grass in Washington, D.C. and Jefferson City today. But even in 1913, heck, even in 1861, well, even the Alien and Sedition Act, when you had the Kentucky and Virginia Resolution not too long after our government was founded. There's always snakes in the grass. It's just they seem to get more attaboys and pats on the back today than they did all those years ago. Your closing thoughts, Brandon?
Just, like going back to what from our interview earlier, one of the most important things you can remember is that you've got to build a good network within your own community. You've got to have friends and family you can rely on in tough times, and don't rely on the government's limited resources with the Red Cross and all that. You got to be able to protect yourself and look out for yourself. Absolutely.
That is a very, very valid point. It is always good to build coalitions within your community. So if some little wannabe dictator steps up to the plate, you can throw him a high, hard one inside and beat him in the head. We'll just go with baseball terms on that. Well, all right, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, thanks to all of you in podcast land, YouTube, Rumble, and MOLibertyRadio.us. Thank you for your continued viewership and listenership, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday right here on the Missouri